Hey guys, Double Wide 6, and today I'm working on a customer's generator. It's a little Honda EU 3000 unit, and the unit starts and then dies is what the customer told me. So we'll check it out together and see what's up with it and hopefully get it repaired. So the unit's an EB 3000C. I said EU. It's an EB, and we're just going to go through it together. So we'll start out just by making sure that there's oil in it. And looks like there's a little bit of oil, but it does look like it's low. Probably enough to get her going. And we'll do a tune-up on this too. I got it. But I don't think the problem is the oil alert. These have a sensor on it where if you're low on oil, it'll shut itself down. So there's an oil alert light. So when we check for spark here, we'll see if that light's coming on. So let me get my spark tester. So we'll start out here just by checking the spark. And I got this clip-on spark tester. Right here it says low, which is normal. And we're going to crank this thing over and we'll see what we get. So the engine switch is on, and I got to find the recoil. Choke. Fuel looks like it's on.
So I didn't notice this during the video, but if you look closely, there's a red oil, low oil light coming on.
And we definitely have good spark. So it's blinking okay there. So next thing we're going to do is just spray a little fuel in it and see if we can get it to pop. So we'll remove the air cleaner cover. This filter looks pretty saturated. It smells like with gas rather than oil. So we might have a gas coming out there, the needle and seat in the carb, and filling this thing up with fuel. This is definitely pretty fresh and wet. So we'll put a little fuel in here, just a shot, and we'll see if this doesn't pop off. That's the choke. Give it a pull.
So I didn't realize it at the time, but the machine has spark, but then because of the low oil shutoff, after a few seconds, it's turning off spark.
We got the low oil alert. So I think I gotta add a little oil to this thing just to get it going. It's that low. So I'll do that. So we'll add a little oil. I didn't see the oil light coming on there. So what's happening is we have spark, but then that spark's getting killed by that oil sensor. And with these Hondas, you need a special little funnel to get in there. That should be enough to keep that light off. I'll try and fire this thing up one more time. I'll choke it. Running and dying. All right. So at least now we know it runs. The fuel in here, not that much fuel. We're going to drain that. Tank actually looks pretty clean.
So I don't know if you noticed it, but in that last clip, when I started the engine, the output indicator was bright green, and I think I looked away and I missed that the oil shut-off light came on. I thought it just was a fuel problem and died out.
So before I pull a carb, I noticed that there was a ton of oil on here. It looks like it's leaking at the fill plug because that's actually wet. And I'm thinking that, you know, that's part of the problem. You know, the oil's leaking out of this, and that's why that oil alert light was going off. So I want to pull this plug, clean that up, and seal up that leak, and then we'll focus on the carb. So the plug is right here, and I'm going to clean that off. I'm going to spray it off a little before I pull it. That way when we put a gasket on it, we'll know it's sealed up. A little bit of compressed air. And I just want to inspect this to see why it's leaking. Here's a look at our bolt. It has a separate aluminum washer, and I cleaned this up and inspected it. Everything looks really good. It could be that it just wasn't tight enough, but I am gonna put a little bit of a sealer on there. And to seal it up, I'm gonna be using this Permatex. It's aviation forma gasket, and this stuff's really gooey, and it's made to seal off areas that are exposed to oil, things like pipe threads. You know, anywhere that you have a gasket, you can add this as a little bit of added insurance. So we put a little coat on there, and I just want to clean off the engine where that seats, and then we'll put that back in. It should be good to go. So everything's cleaned off. I didn't see any cracks or anything. Sometimes you can have a crack where you'll get an oil leak. I mean, this is really the only spot it can leak. And I did check the sump gasket, and the sump gasket seems to be dry from what I could see. So I'm going to begin on the carburetor. There's a couple 10 mils in this air filter box that we got to loosen up. This cover should pull right off. There's actually a choke up here that we can slip up, and this should pull straight back. There we go. Now I got an oil leak because I had it tipped over. Trying to catch that. Alright, so next step, I'm just going to turn off the fuel, and we're going to get in there and remove that carb. So to remove the carb, we should just be able to pull out on it. That came off pretty easily. Got this metal rubber gasket in the front, which is in really good shape. And the only thing we have is a linkage up top, pull straight up, and a spring. So we got those. And luckily we can get the carb off without hitting the post here on the generator. So Honda actually designed that properly. This fuel line feels a little bit rough, so I think I will replace it. While I'm working on the carburetor, I'm going to drain all the gas out here. So I don't know how old the gas is. Didn't smell that bad, but there's not much in here, so I might as well get it out and then we'll look at it and see if there's any water in it or any other issues with the fuel. So we're going to start cleaning up this carburetor. Start off by getting the outside a little bit. So overall the carburetor looks pretty good. There's a little bit of dirt on the emulsion tube, but the main jet looks fine. And I think what I want to do is just run in the ultrasonic cleaner for about 15 minutes or so. So my ultrasonic cleaner, as usual, the water's pretty dirty, but it's just basically degreaser. I like using Purple Power or the concentrated degreaser that you get at Harbor Freight. It's like yellow. That stuff's pretty good. So put it in here for 15 minutes and we'll just start running it. So I got this out of the ultrasonic cleaner and the parts are looking pretty good. So it's just a matter of blowing out all these different jets with a little bit of brake clean or carb cleaner. But overall this carb looks pretty good. Here's a look at the fuel I removed. It looks pretty good. It's a little bit yellow. Doesn't smell bad, but it does have a little bit of dirt in there, like settled down at the bottom. But I don't see any signs of water, and we didn't see any signs of water in the bowl of the carburetor either. So I got all the fuel out of the tank, but I do want to blow it out and try and dry it up and get any sediment out of it. So I took off the old fuel line because this one's a little bit stiff. Got new fuel line, so we'll slip this on. So I changed out the spark plug, and then I realized I forgot to put in this choke lever. So I pulled the air filter assembly back off, and then I put the choke thing in there, and I'm going to put a new air filter on this guy. So all that's set. We'll lock it down. I need to put gas in. I want to get it started up. I'm going to run it and then change the oil once it's hot. Hopefully it runs and makes power. So I fueled it up. Gonna try and bring it outside, start it up, and see what we get. Well, here goes. We'll start it up and we'll see if it'll make power. I see we have an oil sensor alert going off, so I'm going to unplug the oil sensor and see if it'll start. So if you look in here on the side of the block, the little sensor going into the block is the oil sensor. So if you disconnect the wire connected to that, that'll disconnect that oil sensor. So we'll see if that works. It hasn't been run for a couple years, he said, so I'm going to let it run, see if it evens out. Well, it looks like it evened out. It dropped down to like an idle speed. So now I'm going to test to see if it has power. It should idle up. Alright guys, so it runs good when the oil sensor is unplugged, and you know, everything seems to be working just fine except that oil sensor. So I just, to double check that that's the issue, I'm just going to ohm the thing out, because what happens is when the oil sensor figures out there's low oil, it sends a connection from the coil to ground. And I'm going to take my meter, and if we touch the oil sensor, you'll see it's grounded to the case. Okay, so it's giving the signal that it's supposed to ground. Now if I touch this wire and the case, there's no continuity. So what that's telling me is that there's not a break in this wire, and it's not, you know, this wire's not going to ground because the wire's cracked or something like that. So what we need here is a new oil sensor, And frankly, that was probably the main problem with this thing, because the carburetor didn't look that bad at all. So what we'll do is we'll put a new oil sensor on that and see if that takes care of the problem. Alright guys, so it's the next day. I've been thinking about this generator a little bit, and I did talk to the customer. So this isn't the first time that I ever misdiagnosed anything, but I got the word from the customer that it was starting and then it was stalling out, and he thought it had a fuel issue. So right away I kind of thought it was a carburetor, and I did test it for spark, and I had spark, and we had compression, but it turned out that it was turning off the spark after it would run for a while. But I don't know, I just assumed that it would turn off right away because it wasn't getting fuel. So we went through, we cleaned the carburetor and changed the oil, gave that thing a tune-up. And I talked to the customer, and in order to replace that oil pressure sensor on that Honda, you got to pull apart the whole engine, remove the sump, and you know, it's just a lot of labor. So this guy uses that thing, I think he's a construction worker, and if he loses power, then he needs a generator, and he loses power once in a while. So I recommended to him that he just run it without that switch, just keep it unplugged, and he should be good to go. And just, you know, hey, every time you use it, check the oil. I don't think it's really burning oil. It did have an oil leak, and I think I got that squared away. I pressure washed the machine, and I ran it, and I didn't see any oil leak. So you know, hopefully this works out good for him. I know that you can buy that same generator. It's about $1,800 plus tax. So for him to be in this, you know, probably 150 bucks or so, he's going to be in good shape. So anyhow guys, hit the thumbs up if you liked the video, and don't forget to subscribe. Many of you out there watching these videos don't subscribe, so I'm just asking that you subscribe, help out the channel. So thanks a lot guys, and hopefully you enjoyed the video.